Judaism. In the tradition of Judaism, the figure of Enoch, a significant figure first mentioned in the book of Genesis 5 verse 18 to 24, as the seventh descendant from Adam through the line of Cain and also Seth, depending on the genealogy, where it is said that Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. This verse has become the basis for the interpretation that Enoch did not experience death, but was taken up alive into heaven, making him one of two figures in the Tanakh, besides Elijah, to experience a divine assumption. Rabbinic tradition expands on this story in Midrashic and Talmudic literature, portraying Enoch as a profoundly righteous individual and as a divine scribe who recorded the deeds of humanity. In Kabbalah, particularly in mystical texts such as the Sefer Hekkelot and Third Enoch, Enoch is even said to have been elevated to become the archangel Metatron, who holds a crucial role as a celestial scribe and an intermediary between God and humanity. This transformation marks a fusion of Jewish theology, angelology, and mysticism. The Book of Enoch, First Enoch, although not canonical in Rabbinic Judaism, is a highly influential Jewish apocalyptic work from the 3rd century BCE. It contains visions of heaven, the fall of the angels, Grigori Watchers, and the final judgment. This book reflects early Jewish eschatological thought that developed in the intertestamental period and became one of the foundations for apocalyptic traditions in both Judaism and early Christianity, although it was later rejected from the Jewish canon post-70 CE. Christianity. In the Christian tradition, the figure of Enoch is recognized as a very important figure, primarily because he's mentioned in the Old Testament, Genesis 5 verse 24, and reaffirmed in the New Testament, Hebrews 11 verse 5, where he is described as one who pleased God and was taken up to heaven without experiencing death. In Christian theology, Enoch is often presented as a symbol of personal piety, true faith, and spiritual closeness to God even before the Abrahamic era. The Epistle of Jude 1 verse 14 to 15 directly quotes from the Book of Enoch, indicating that the apocalyptic writings associated with him strongly influenced the early Christian community, especially in describing the coming of the Lord with his holy multitudes to judge the world. Some early churches considered the Book of Enoch a sacred text, and although it was later excluded from the official canon of Western churches, the text continued to be studied as part of the Christian apocalyptic tradition. Early theologians like Tertullian and Origen cited the Book of Enoch as an important reference concerning the fall of the angels, watchers, and the origin of evil in the world. Furthermore, some Christian interpreters believe that Enoch is one of the two witnesses in the book of Revelation, 11 verse 3 to 12, who will return near the end of time with Elijah, as both did not experience earthly death. In eschatological theology, Enoch serves as a prototype of the faithful flock who will be raptured by God before the final judgment, making him a significant figure in the narrative of salvation and transcendence. Islam. In the Islamic tradition, Enoch is known by the name Idris, who is mentioned twice in the Qur'an, in Surah Maryam, verses 56 to 57, and mention in the book Idris, indeed, he was a man of truth and a prophet, and we raised him to a high station. And in Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 85. Although only a few verses explicitly mention Idris, the tradition of Islamic exegesis, such as the works of Al-Tabari, Ibn Kathir, and Al-Qurtubi, significantly expands his narrative. Idris is often considered the second or third prophet after Adam and Seth, and is believed to be the first person to introduce writing, the sewing of garments from cloth, as well as astronomy and mathematics, representing early human civilization and knowledge. In many accounts, Idris is said to have lived for 865 years and received 30 scrolls of revelation, suhuf, as is also mentioned in a sound hadith that some prophets received scrolls before the Torah. In the story of the Isra and Miraj, Prophet Muhammad met Idris in the fourth heaven, which strengthens the understanding that he was raised to a high place as indicated in the Qur'an. Some scholars and Sufis, as in the works of Ibn Arabi and Al-Ghazali, position Idris as a great mystical figure who has reached a specific spiritual station, maqam, similar to the transformation of Enoch in Jewish tradition, although the identification between Enoch and Idris does not originate from primary Islamic sources. A classical and modern consensus widely supports the view that they are the same figure, making Idris a unique bridge between revelation, science, and spiritual ascent in Islam. Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Church. In the tradition of the Ethiopian Tewahedo Orthodox Church, Enoch holds a very special position, far exceeding his recognition in Western Christian churches. One of the unique features of this church is its full acceptance of the book of 1st Enoch as part of its biblical canon, making it the only major Christian church to do so. This book consists of 5 main parts, including the Book of the Watchers, which describes the fall of the Watcher angels, Grigori, the birth of the giants, Nephilim, and the final judgment. Enoch is depicted as a prophet who was taken up to heaven, saw the structure of the cosmos, hell and heaven, and received direct revelations from God concerning the future of humanity, Judgment Day, and the Messianic kingdom. In Ethiopian theology, Enoch is not only a prophet but also a writer of divine revelation, an heir to primeval truth, and an intermediary between heaven and earth. The text of 1st Enoch is written in Ge'ez and has become the basis for apocalyptic, cosmological, and eschatological understanding in the Ethiopian Church. Moreover, the books of 2nd and 3rd Enoch, though not canonical, are also widely respected in their religious literature, expanding the narrative of Enoch as a transcendent figure who transforms into an archangel. The presence of Enoch in the liturgy, iconography, and spiritual teaching in Ethiopia reflects that he is not merely seen as a historical figure or a symbol of faith, but as a great prophet who continues to influence the doctrinal, mystical, and spiritual culture of Ethiopian Christians to this day. Gnosticism. In the Gnostic tradition, particularly in the schools of thought that flourished from the 2nd to the 4th century CE, Enoch was viewed not merely as a moral prophet, but as a bearer of gnosis, the hidden divine knowledge that liberates the soul from the material world. Although not all Gnostic texts explicitly mention Enoch, in documents such as the Book of Enoch, the Secret Book of John, and Zostrianos, the concept of a figure ascending to heaven to receive secret knowledge is very similar to the narrative of Enoch. In this context, Enoch is seen as an archetype of the divine man who penetrates the layered heavenly structures, the heptad or decad of heavens, to gain insight into the origin of the world, the fall of the aeons, and how the material world was created by the demiurge, a false god. Some Gnostic sects, such as the Sethians, even associated Enoch with Seth and referred to him as a link between the divine world and humanity. In Hermetic Gnostic thought, Enoch is depicted as a figure who achieved union with the divine principle and the owner of secret books containing high-level astronomy, cosmology, and theology. Furthermore, Enoch is associated with the figure of an archangel or a divine being who wanders into higher dimensions. An idea that parallels his transformation into Metatron in Jewish Kabbalah. Enoch's function in Gnosticism is not as a prophet for the masses, but as a mystical teacher, the inheritor of the secrets of creation, and a symbol of humanity transcending the boundaries of the physical world's illusion toward spiritual fullness, pleroma. His narrative inspired various apocalyptic and mystical texts that reflect the Gnostic aspiration to free the soul from the snares of the mortal world through inner knowledge and transcendental vision. Bahai faith. In the Bahai faith, Enoch is known and revered through his identification with the prophet Idris from the Islamic tradition, and is viewed as one of the early manifestations of God sent before major prophets like Abraham, Moses, Zoroaster, Jesus, Muhammad, and Baha'u'llah. Although the Baha'i sacred texts, such as the Kitab-i-Iqan or gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah, do not directly mention Enoch, Baha'i followers accept the existence of ancient prophets, including Idris as Enoch, as part of the progressive series of God's revelations in their theological framework called periodic manifestations. Within this framework, Enoch is considered a conveyor of divine wisdom to humanity at an early stage of civilization's spiritual development, and is seen as having introduced important principles such as knowledge, morality, and social structure, including the development of writing and science, as reflected in the attribution of Idris as the first writer in Islamic tradition. The Baha'i faith does not separate revelation from science. Both are manifestations of God's will. Thus, Enoch Idris is seen as a harmonious symbol of spiritual revelation and the intellectual progress of humankind. The Baha'i emphasis on the unity of world religions makes a figure like Enoch a representation of God's universal revelation that transcends sectarian, temporal, and geographical boundaries. Therefore, although not a central focus in formal liturgy or doctrine, Enoch is still honored as an integral part of humanity's spiritual history and as a guardian of ancient truth within the architecture of the Bahai belief. Mormonism. In Mormonism, Enoch holds a very high position as a great prophet who received direct revelation from God and established the holy city of Zion, which is said to have been taken up into heaven because of the righteousness of its inhabitants. The primary source for this understanding comes from the Mormon scripture called the Book of Moses, part of the Pearl of Great Price, one of the 4 canonical books of the LDS Church. In the Book of Moses, chapter 6 through 7, Enoch is depicted as a prophet called at a young age who rejected a wicked world and was given power to see divine things, including visions of Jesus Christ, the flood in Noah's time, and end-time events. Most striking is the building of the city of Zion, city of Enoch, an ideal community full of peace and truth, which, due to its holiness, was taken up entirely into heaven by God. This creates a crucial theological foundation in Mormonism, the concept that God's people can create a heavenly society on earth that will one day be reunited with the heavenly Zion at the second coming of Jesus. Enoch is viewed not only as a prophet, but as the bearer of an ideal social model and an inspiration for Latter-day Saints to build a righteous and unified world. In Mormon texts, Enoch also has a vision of God's own suffering over human sin, reflecting a spiritual depth and relational intimacy between God and his people, a concept very distinctive to LDS theology. The figure of Enoch thus becomes a bridge between ancient prophecy, the unity of the people, and eschatological hope within the Mormon belief system. Western Esotericism. In the world of Western mysticism and esotericism, particularly from the Renaissance to the modern era, Enoch is viewed as a primary source of secret knowledge, a pioneer of divine revelation channeled through celestial language and symbols. This view reached its peak in the system of Enochian Magick, a branch of occultism developed by John Dee, astronomer and advisor to Queen Elizabeth of Flourish, and his associate Edward Kelley in the 16th century. They claimed to have received direct revelations from angels who taught them a celestial language called Enochian, which was said to be the language used by angels and by Enoch himself in writing the now lost heavenly books. This system includes numerical tables, angelic symbols, and a complex celestial hierarchy, and has become a significant part of modern occultism, such as in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and the magical practices of Aleister Crowley. Furthermore, Enoch is seen as a primordial figure who recorded the sciences of astronomy, divine architecture, and even the foundations of alchemy and astrology. In Hermetic and Kabbalistic texts, Enoch is often identified with Metatron, the archangel scribe of revelation, who sits at the right hand of God. He is seen as the first human to understand the structure of heaven and earth esoterically, and he became a model of the perfected wise man who has united with the divine source. For esotericists, Enoch is the guardian of ancient wisdom, a symbol of inner enlightenment, and an emblem of human success in spiritual transcendence through knowledge, sacred language, and direct connection with the angelic world, a primary archetype in Western mystical and occult doctrine. Hermetic and occult traditions. In Hermetic and occult traditions, Enoch holds a central position as a human figure transformed into a divine being, a symbol of the highest enlightenment achievable by man through secret knowledge, gnosis, meditation, and contact with the spiritual world. This tradition evolved from the heritage of Greco-Hellenistic thought, Kabbalah, Gnosticism, and esoteric philosophical currents that culminated in systems such as Hermetic Kabbalah, Rosicrucianism, and Theosophy. Within this framework, Enoch is not merely an ancient prophet, but is viewed as a divine architect who received cosmic knowledge directly from God and the angels. One of the dominant concepts is the identification of Enoch with Metatron, the archangel scribe and king of angels in the Kabbalistic system, who is said to be the only human to be elevated and given a celestial status equal to that of an angel. In the Sefer Hekhalot and 3 Enoch medieval Jewish mystical texts, the process of Enoch's transformation into Metatron is described in detail, the union of the human soul with an angelic archetype, which was adopted in Hermetic teachings as a model of spiritual ascension. Modern occultists see Enoch as the link between the macrocosm and the microcosm, the channeler of the science of alchemy, the 7-layered structure of the heavens, and a celestial language, later known as the Enochian language. In many Rosicrucian texts of the 17th and 18th centuries, he was considered the early founder of the sacred science secretly passed down to initiates. Thus, in Hermetic and occult traditions, Enoch is not merely a religious figure, but the perfect man, homo spiritualis, who becomes the blueprint for the highest spiritual attainment through divine knowledge, moral purity, and union with the cosmic will. Folk and mythology. In various folk beliefs, Judeo-Christian European legends, and popular mythology, Enoch is often revived as a mysterious figure who holds the ancient secrets of the world, known not only as a prophet but also as an ancient sage, an architect of the highest knowledge, and the guardian of God's secret books. In pseudo-historical literature and popular esoteric myths, including works from the Middle Ages to modern theories, Enoch is often associated with the construction of the Egyptian pyramids, Stonehenge, or other megalithic monuments, portrayed as a divine engineer guided by angelic revelation. In Eastern European Jewish legends, Enoch is said to have written 366 books of wisdom before being taken up to heaven. Some of these books are said to be hidden and will only be found at the end of time. This view has influenced a significant number of mystical narratives, including in Christian apocalyptic literature and Hasidic Judaism. In medieval Christian folklore, Enoch often becomes a figure who will return as one of the 2 eschatological witnesses, along with Elijah, in Revelation 11, verse 3-12, to confront the Antichrist. Meanwhile, in contemporary popular mythology, especially that which has developed within the New Age movement, Enoch is portrayed as a representative of a pre-flood civilization that was highly advanced both spiritually and technologically and is believed to have connections with extraterrestrial entities or other dimensions. He is often associated with the existence of Enochian books hidden by secret elites or appearing in global conspiracy scenarios. In these versions, Enoch transcends the boundaries of formal religion, becoming a universal icon of ancient wisdom, lost civilizations, and the spiritual potential of humanity waiting to be reawakened